I hate ad funds. I hate ad funds. I hate ad funds.
But why? I am so confused by your point of view. I really want to get into this. Welcome to Dear Frannie, the franchise advice column. I'm your host, Catherine LeBlanc. And along with my co-host, James Vetrano, we've spent our careers inside growing franchise systems. From marketing to operations, we break down real questions and real challenges and share the kind of answers you only get from experience. Let's jump in. Thanks for joining Dear Frannie. I'm your host, Catherine.
And I'm the co-host, James.
Hey, James, we're going to kick off this episode with a little segment I call This or That. So I'm going to read a question that all franchise emerging brands struggle with, and we're going to take two sides. So our first this or that question is going to be, should I start my ad fund immediately or wait until I have some scale? So you're going to take the position that you should wait to have some scale, and I'll take you should start it immediately because that is truly what I believe. So let's get started. Why should you wait to have some scale to start your ad fund?
I'm starting my timer now. I'm going to give it the big defensive back in football celebration of grabbing it all and putting the thumbs down on the ad fund. And here's why. I hate ad funds. I hate ad funds. I hate ad funds. I hate ad funds. So as a franchisor, it's a distraction, right? Secondly, as a lawyer, unbelievable amounts of litigation. Third, franchisees are never going to be happy with how you advertise your brand. Fourth, it's never enough. Like, I want to sing that Lauren Allard song or whatever. It's never enough, right? Like, hold on. Let me see if I can hit the note. It's never enough. Okay. 5, why? Help me understand why, marketer. I'm going to kick it over to you in a few seconds, but why? I, as a franchisor, have to advertise my brand anyway. You, as a franchisee, would expect that I'm putting out advertising and marketing and brand awareness for my brand. Finally, you are a franchisee. You know your market. You're the local expert. I don't know anything about insert Oklahoma City. I don't know anything about Arkansas somewhere. You are from there. You know the PTA. You know the press. You know the community groups. I'm just a franchisor from nowhere, insert state. You're the local expert. So my this or that is that needs to wait, if at all. Marketer, give me your counter.
I am holding my tongue. Okay, so my opinion, you need to start your ad fund immediately. And I would recommend starting your ad fund immediately because whenever you introduce a new fee to the franchisees, it is a fight. The ad fund, my turn. The ad fund is a franchise secret weapon. And to counter some of what James said, the ad fund is a collection of dollars that you are spending on behalf of all locations. It elevates your brand as a franchisor in a way that you cannot do on a local level. And so, in my opinion, you start it immediately because you cannot, anytime you introduce a new fee, it's a fight. And you can do this perfectly. You can have the greatest setup in the whole wide world, but at the end of the day, the franchisees view it as a fee. If you started immediately, you are also better positioned to invest in some of the long-term visioning brand development that you need in order to support your franchisees long-term. So that is why I would start the brand fund immediately. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about why we differ on this. Obviously, I'm coming from the marketing perspective, and the ad fund is what funds my activity. And so I'm very passionate about this topic. But why? I am so confused by your point of view. I really want to get into this. So, and I hear you, and I've seen franchises do this. And so your point of view is, I'm not, all the dollars that the local owner is going to spend on marketing should be spent on the local market, right?
Yes, ma'am. Correct.
Okay. So, and then your point of view is that the franchisor, through their royalty collection, should fund all of the kind of support, marketing support that needs to happen for the franchisee?
Yeah, I think this, Catherine, like, let's imagine we started our own brand and we were very successful, and you are the marketing component of that brand. You're the CMO, the marketing goddess. I am already going to have in place, as I get to a certain stage, some type of competent professional, capable marketing initiative if I'm going to start franchising, right? My business
Sure.
wouldn't be making money if I didn't have some type of positive marketing movement. So I kind of look at it as a built in cost of the brand where I want you, my genius in marketing, to help set the strategy and the execution of both traffic sales driving initiatives and brand awareness and brand identity and brand positioning. So
Mhm.
that's sort of already there. And as I bring franchisees still doing it up here. I need to keep doing it up here. What I'd rather see is that money stay in the franchisee's pocket and we provide, ideas, suggestions, thoughts, assets, tools for that franchisee to utilize on a local level, right? So let's say a percent, 2%, 3%, keep that and spend it on your local advertising while I'm over here doing
Mhm.
it, right?
Yeah.
The last thing I'd say though is I think you're exactly right though on the fact of if you have the fee in the FDD or the franchise agreement, you might as well charge it because
Yeah.
if you turn it on later, it's impacting everybody in a negative way. So I do agree with that.
Yeah.
And look, I've been associated with other brands that I ran where I didn't have a marketing fee at all. I just didn't have one at all because I wasn't going to charge it and I didn't want to turn it on later. So to your point of like,
Mhm.
hey, if we're going to do it, we're doing it from day one. Your
Yeah.
thoughts on why, like, do you think
Well, look, here's my philosophy on ad funds, and this is where I would counter what you're saying. So for me, when I talk about ad funds to our franchisees and the kind of modern term that we're calling is brand fund, right? Because it's since it's not going to advertising. There is no amount of money that I can collect until I get to 1,000 locations that I'm going to be able to reinvest it into advertising at scale. And so for me, my philosophy on the fund is that I am bringing bringing the dollars into a fund that is directly impacting the franchisees, and it's there for two things. One, it's to create efficiencies and cost. And so as a small business owner, if I have to invest in my website development, my SEO, my Google Business
fair point,
Profile management, I'm going to get a better cost if we're doing it as a group than if
aggregated?
I'm doing it alone. The second thing the ad fund is there for is for the long-term brand building efforts that frankly small business owners, whether you're franchise or not, don't invest in. And so these are things like brand development. I think brand development is so important and so important to do early because if you have a strong brand development, it saves on costs later down the road. The other thing that I would say is things like national influencer partnerships, national PR, things like, if we wanted to do a brand loyalty program, those are things that can be funded through the ad fund that are long term good for the brand, but short term you're not going to see results. And so those are investments that small business owners have trouble investing in. And so if you have a fund that you control at the national level that can one save on marketing costs at the local level so that they can spend more on in their neighborhood, and then two, invest in long-term brand building, then you are truly setting your brand up for success.
I think that is a very important distinction from how historical ad funds operate, right? So I love this idea. And maybe you've turned me from I
Okay.
don't like an ad fund to I'm down with the brand fund at a
Mhm.
minimum percentage, 1 to 2 max, where you're saying to me, franchisee, I'm going to take off the burden of all of that SEO, social, and
Right.
media lift, as well as the benefit of aggregated purchasing that then flows directly down. Secondly, I do like the idea of, hey, I am investing in as a franchisee the growth of the brand, both regionally or nationally and
Mhm.
locally. So here's
Yeah.
what I would say on the recap of where we could probably meet in the middle. I'm signing off on a 1 or 2% brand fund only if these three things exist. One, Dear Frannie, make sure you have a capable strategic marketing leader to administer and to manage and to operate your brand fund on behalf of your
Mhm.
franchisees, not
That's right.
the franchisor, on behalf of your franchisees and the brand.
100%.
Two, make sure it is serving an aggregated beneficial purpose that alleviates the demand of small business owners doing marketing. And three, make sure that there is very clear visibility as it relates to the activities and initiatives being done,
Mhm.
along with accountability to the extent you are providing stuff to the franchisees that they aren't utilizing. So
Yep.
if we can agree on that as we
Okay.
start the LeBlanc brand, I'm down with charging a 2%
All
max
right.
fee. Good
All
job, you
right, then we
win.
got on the same page. So start it immediately. James says, start it small,
Brand
which I
fun.
agree with. Yes. And look, I also think that having a philosophy around the brand fund and how you're going to do it is a good
That's great.
kind of starting point.
And look, I think hey, brand looking to franchise, spend a few dollars with a marketing expert, not me, definitely you, but not me.
Definitely not you.
Set oh god, setting forth what is your strategy for
Yeah.
the next 18 to 36 months, given where you are as a brand, right?
Yeah.
Because rolling out a brand fund or an ad fund without some strategic purpose and the brand, I should be able, as a development officer, I should be able to talk to the franchisee about what our initiatives are
Mhm.
relative to administering and implementing initiatives out of the brand fund, right?
Yeah. It
And
should be
then
a selling point.
it should be
Absolutely.
a selling
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
Agreed.
Absolutely.
Versus a fee. Like it's a selling point
That's right.
versus a fee.
Mhm.
All right, you
Yeah.
win.
Okay, great. I won that round. All right,
Ugh.
let's move into our Dear Frannie question. So this week we're tackling why does growth feel harder at 30 to 75 units than it did at 5 to 20? I love this question because in my fractional practice, I often work with brands around this 30 to 75 stage. And it is a big transition. And I think that it's something that is not recognized at the leadership level around, when you move, and I say 20 to 30, right, is when you start moving into a new phase of the franchise life cycle. But before we get to 30 to 75, what do you think makes the early stage, that 5 to 20 units, a hard stage to begin with?
I'm going to start with they both suck.
Okay.
And I'm going to end
They suck
there.
for different reasons, though, right?
Yeah, right. Look, it's Friday. I like to adopt an Aloha Friday because I'm in Hawaii in my mind constantly. So let's be positive, right? They suck for a good reason. It's hard at 30, and there's no definitive breaking point. It kind of suck at 25. But as you move into that post, and I hate these terms that the industry keeps saddling us with, post emerging
Hmm.
quasi growth brand, you are in that weird spot of having a little money, a little TTM,
Right.
EBITDA, a little above store resource allocation, but you don't really have enough, right?
Yes.
So,
Yeah.
the success that I see at that level comes from, like, I want to say legacy brands that have been around for a while that are maybe operating at that 30 to 50 unit level that have
Mhm.
built a little bit of cash flow and gone through an identity thing and are ready to go into franchising at that point in time or expand franchising. It's
Mhm.
really hard when you are a small corporate owned base or a little no corporate owned base with 25 to 30 franchisees. Maybe it's 25 different operators, like getting your hands around that beast
Mhm.
that you've created. That's why it's tough. And to quote,
Yeah.
Mike Ellis, a former CDO at Einstein's, Ruby Tuesday, and then just out of Portillo's, you don't want snowflakes. You're fighting snowflakes. You got individual franchisees.
Right.
So that's
Well, and that's,
why I think 30 is tough. Your thoughts?
I think that the early stage, 5 to 20, you do treat everybody like a snowflake,
You
right?
have to.
Because you're all in it together. You're all
Yeah.
figuring it out. What is the franchise? Yes, I have a successful proof of concept, but now I've gone to this market. Now I've gone to
Wasn't
this
there like
market.
a High School Musical song? My kids, we're all in this together, right? And I gotta check on my kids. But you're right. Like you're exactly right. Stay right
Yeah.
there for a minute. Like you're trying to build a brand. So you're like, hey, I'll take out this franchisee. Hey, this franchisee believes in me. I mean, there's nothing more flattering than somebody who believes in
Mhm.
your vision, right? So you're figuring it out on the fly, you're evolving and learning with them. And then you get
That's
to
right.
that sort of wall of like, okay, who are we now? And we really kind of have something. So that like, but the problem with the 5 to 20 is you got no money.
Yeah.
You got no money.
Well, but you have no money, but you have, again, it
Hard.
goes back to, it's just a different mindset and it's a different life cycle. You have the pioneers of your brand at your side doing it with you, and you're learning some really good lessons around what does it take to really succeed. Now, when you do start to transition out of those first pioneer franchisees, what are I've seen some major things break down, and they break down because of scale. And they break down because as much as you think you've prepared for scale, you really haven't.
For
So for
sure. No,
me,
you're never prepared for scale.
yeah, you never, well, and you can't see around the corner, right? And that's where it's like, we've made all of the mistakes that we've made, but there's certainly a lot that we haven't made, right? And so
Yeah.
it's like you don't know what's around the corner. You can do your best to mitigate for it. But some of the things I see breaking down as you get to that 25 to 30 is going back to that community. It's at 20, it was tribal knowledge, and your systems and processes didn't have to be perfect because you could call everybody in one day. You could, if a supply chain something or other broke down, you could fix, 20 locations. Hopefully you've taken a strategy where you're growing in kind of those concentric circles so your support can match it. But you can figure out how to drive this, thing to that thing, and make it all work. Once you get past 25, you need process. You
Yeah.
need systems. And if you
Yeah.
haven't taken the time to build it, it
Yeah.
can really break down as you get to 25,
Well,
35,
well,
45.
and to the dear Franny question, right? It's harder at that larger number because it exposes the lack of structure, the lack of processes, the lack of continuity. And it is really where that flexion point starts to happen of we're rowing this boat with people on each side with oars, and we're trying to keep it straight and keep it going, and we're creating our identity. To that, now we're not rowing a boat. We got a sailboat, and we got to figure out where we're navigating here.
Yes.
And if you
Yes.
don't have that sort of experience, plan, and system in place, then you're growing at the same time, then it's pulling in
Right.
opposite directions.
Mhm.
And that's where the strain comes in, right? And what happens is, and you've seen this, and I'm sure every franchise or franchisee has seen this. When you start at that stage, like now you've got people going different ways,
Right.
right? And people going different ways because we've had, you know, the first 3 to 7 franchisees doing this, right? And now we've got the next 10 to 15 doing this because we've learned. Back to your point about ad fund, we have to aggregate this entire
Yes. Your support
universe of
changes.
different. Yes,
Yeah.
exactly.
And support
Exactly.
expectations change. So your
Right.
franchisees' expectation of what they're going to get from you
Yep.
are, the pioneers are like, "Hey, we're all figuring this out together." But then the
Right.
next group is like, Well, I joined a system. So where is the system?"
Correct. You're exactly
Yeah.
right. And look, I'll throw it into parenting. When you have your first kid, you're like, what the heck happened? Right? Like, I can't sleep anymore. Then
Mhm.
you have your second kid, and you're like, oh my God, like one was easy. Right?
Yeah.
And if you have a third kid, you're like, I don't have enough hands to
Mhm.
manage this. Right? And as you keep adding children to your family, it exposes like you can do certain things with one kid.
Mhm.
You can do
Right.
a different things with two. You can do it just changes as you grow. And like if you end
Mhm.
up like us with 6 kids, like you can't fit everybody in one car, right?
Right.
Same thing with the franchise system. And I
Yeah.
think if I'm responding to our writer here on the Dear Franny request, you got to trade your car in and upgrade if you can, right?
Well, but
Or you got to
speaking of
build
that,
a
like,
different system.
what you know, so I think what we would agree on is as you are kind of in the thick of things at that 5 to 20 stage, you also have to be parallel pathing preparation for the next
Yep.
phase. And that means writing down your processes, even if they change the next year, right? Because a new franchisee came on board and they gave you some great feedback and you're going to change your process. Writing those processes down and formatting them in a way that franchisees can actually understand is going to help you move so much faster, be in that bigger car when you get to 30 to 50. But another thing that I see systems do at that 30 to 50 point, you spoke on this earlier. At 30 to 50, you start to get some money and you start to get some you have more ability to have flexibility in decisions. And so at this stage, I also see some investments being made. And a lot of times those investments are like the bright and shiny platforms, or they're on things that you think are important, but at the end of the day, they
Right.
may be overpriced for where you're at. I'm curious what kinds of investments you've seen brands make at that, 50 stage when they have a couple dollars in the pocket. What are some
Yeah.
good investments and what are some bad investments that you've seen made?
So it's so funny. The irony of this issue is as you're growing, you are having to put systems and processes in place because you're learning each time, right? Each time you're learning as you grow in different regions. So you're having to standardize with flexibility how we're doing things so that there is some continuity associated with the brand and the franchise offering. But it evolves and it evolves and evolves. So you start adding true systems. You bring on
Mhm.
vendors, you bring on
Right.
payroll providers, you bring on tech stacks, you bring whatever it is. And then the pain points become at different levels. Like those things don't fit correctly. And so then
Mhm.
you end up with legacy systems as you start to grow, right? And then those
Yeah.
legacy systems don't really fit where you're going, right? And you're stuck in a
Mhm.
5-year contract. So some of the
Yeah.
mistakes I've seen is like you're buying for either what you need now, right? Or what you can afford now without the ability or flexibility to adapt if we're going forward. So I feel like the first mistake that brands make as they move from, starting to emerging to true growth, they don't they're unable, and it's not a failure, it's just unable to see where they're going and what they're going to
Yeah.
need,
Mhm.
but they can't necessarily afford the investment in that. So you end up
Mhm.
overlaid with systems that only serve small regional circles and don't really take into account the larger uh,
Yeah.
system going
Well,
forward. And I'll
I've
just
seen
on the kid thing, right? It's like buying brands that are moving from emerging to grow through franchising have to buy the shoes that fit their kid right now,
Mhm.
and they're not buying for the next size up, right?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
think if we as an industry can start helping those growing brands to be able to adapt off of contracts, vendor relationships, tech services as their kid grows, that I think would help eliminate a lot of the headaches I've seen relative to legacy systems or non supporting systems. What's your
But
thoughts? Sorry, I kept
I've
going.
also seen the opposite. I've seen where you are investing for what you think is the future and you are over investing in something that you maybe don't really need. And I'll use the example of
Good
a
point.
learning management software, right? So there's all kinds of learning management softwares. They're called LMS, and they are essential because just like we talked about earlier, you have to be building the process and the training in a way that multiple people can digest it in order for you to have a system, right? The system exists because there is a system. And so I have seen brands invest either too early or in the Cadillac of learning management systems when in reality you really need to break down what do we really need? When we think about training, we need a documentation. So we need a Word document. We need video for the folks who want to either see it or listen to it. We need something interactive, right? Or something with pictures for the franchisees. And where does all of that get housed, right? And so it's great to have it housed in the Cadillac of learning management systems with the quizzes and the modules, and you can track how many people are using it and all of that jazz. But at the end of the day, if you are in that growth stage, as we're calling it, in that 30 to 50, investing in that learning management system is not the investment. It's
You're
you need to
exactly
invest in
right.
the content, right? So the
Amen.
content is where the investment needs to be made versus the platform. And
Stop
sometimes
right
it's
there. Stop right
yeah.
there. That's the takeaway that I
Mhm.
think every brand needs invest in content. It's your statement. Catherine LeBlanc, invest in content, not systems, as you're moving from growth to emerging, right? I'm sorry,
Okay.
content, not systems, as you're moving from emerging to growth. You're
Yeah.
exactly right. You're exactly right. Like I'm working with a group right now that like everything's on Dropbox. Everything's on
Mhm.
Dropbox. Ironically, they have like three or four other systems that were, they don't need three or four other systems to hold it, right? But they got
Right.
Dropbox, got three or four others. But as we introduce this franchising system, Dropbox is fine. You just have to have good stuff in the Dropbox,
That's
right?
right.
And
Yeah.
it doesn't, to your point, you go buy this Cadillac system, right? That you don't need for 10 locations, 15 locations, 30 locations. You just need to have good stuff that's well organized that people can
Mhm.
go to that enables operational implementation and execution at the store level. You're
Mhm.
exactly right.
Yeah.
I think the takeaway is, and I'm stealing it, content versus systems as you move from emerging to growth. That's
Well,
exactly
let's
right.
get into it. What are the takeaways from today's episode?
Let's get into Catherine's three really. I know you have two. I'm going to summarize two of yours that I think are great. These aren't mine, these are yours. One, brand funds that alleviate the burden of local operators having to fight the marketing fight that benefits the local operators by way of aggregation and cost distribution to enable sales and brand building. There's the positive for brand funds. Second, these are all Catherine LeBlanc points. Second, start if you're going to do it and you're going to charge it from day one, but charge it with a strategy and clear vision of what you're going to be doing for the franchisee on behalf of the brand at the stage you're at.
Okay.
That's the second point. And the third point, Catherine LeBlanc's point, content over systems when you're moving from emerging to growth relative to all of your processes and or brand approaches. That is the top three. That's the top three, and they're all yours. You're taking all three today. Petrano did nothing but showed up and gave the whole like "don't do it" thing. But you won today. It's a Catherine LeBlanc win. There's three takeaways, and those three are fantastic.
I'll take it.
Good
I'll
job.
take it. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today for Dear Frannie. If our discussion feels familiar, you're not behind, you're right on time. Thanks for joining us, and please share this with somebody who needs to know that they are not alone.